Elon finding himself in a little trouble. He's actually deleted his tweet since then. Let's put this image up there, please. Hillary Clinton tweeting out, the Republican Party and its mouthpieces are now regularly spread hate and deranged conspiracy theories. It is shocking but not surprising that the violence is a result. As citizens, we must hold them accountable for their words and the actions that follow, with a link specifically to this Mr. DePape. Elon replied with a link to SMOobserved.com. I don't really know how to describe it, like a rumor tabloid-ish type site out of San Francisco.
Just to give you a sense of their credibility, they had apparently reported previously that Hillary Clinton was really dead and her body double was debating Trump. So that's the type of content that they try.
That's the type of content. Anyway, he says, quote, there is a tiny possibility there might be more to the story than meets the eye, with a link to a now deleted tweet and to a website which has effectively been nuked by all of the traffic. Now, the allegation essentially was that Pelosi was, quote, drunk, and that these were two gay lovers in some sort of lovers quarrel that had gone back to a bar, knew each other, and that something went wrong. Unfortunately for them, they linked to many of the details, which have now, again, according to the police, have now come out and said to be wrong. I think all of this does underscore a discussion that we were just having now, Krystal, which is that everybody is in a mad dash to say, no, the other side is wrong. When it's like, yeah, man, I mean, I don't know why it is not just comforting to say, like, people are crazy. John Hinckley was just crazy. I mean, is it Jodie Foster's fault that he shot Ronald Reagan? No. I mean, one of the Manson family or whatever, when they should take a shot at Gerald Ford, that one, there might be somebody at fault, but they happen to work over the CIA. But the point is that I'm not in the business generally of blaming folks. And actually, you may disagree. I actually thought that Michael Schellenberger did a decent job, aside from his own editorial musings, of who exactly this gentleman is. It gives me a pretty good insight.
I'll let you set it up, but yeah, I do disagree with
Put it up there on the screen. Michael Schellenberger says the media portraying the suspect in the attack as a man fundamentally driven by right-wing ideology. It is obvious to anyone who looks what drove DePape with violence was drug-induced paranoid psychosis. Neighbors described DePape as a homeless drug addict with politics that was until recently left-wing, but of a secondary importance to his psychotic and paranoid behavior. DePape lived with a notorious local nudist colony in Berkeley, complete with a BLM sign in the window, LGBT flag, and emblazoned with a marijuana symbol hanging from a tree. He says, quote, what I know about the family is that they're very radical activists. He's quoting somebody who knows the family and was friends with them. I mean, it comes away to me like he's a crazy person, a Castro nudist. I don't think he's left or right wing. I think he's just nuts.
But here's the thing, okay? Schellenberger is doing the exact same thing that everyone else is doing.
Well, he visited the house at least.
He visited a house that this dude lived in years ago.
Right.
I mean, he hasn't even been there.
Well, it was also the FBI
hasn't even been there in years. So he's drawing all these conclusions, and oh, lo and behold, he uses all of the pieces that he gathers to feed his own hobby horse of, that's why we need to be tough on crime, that's why we need to lock up drug users, that's why this has nothing to do with ideology. He does. His conclusion is, we've got to restore consequences for crimes resulting from addiction, both of which can be viewed as cries for help. Had laws against both been enforced, then we may not have ended up in this situation. So he uses all of this to fuel his own hobby horse of, it's the crime is the problem, California is out of control, and completely ignores that you can't ignore that there is an ideological component here. I mean, you don't show up at the Speaker of the House's mansion without having some sort of like political ideological agenda. So to say he's just crazy and there's no ideological piece, I think is also dishonest. Like, I think you have to acknowledge that the prevalence of these conspiracy theories, QAnon in particular, but a bunch of other ones that have become increasingly mainstream on the right, was a toxic combination with this dude's mental illness and helped to result in this attack ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will defend the man. He does not believe in mass incarceration for drugs. He believes in, quote, consequences as in getting people treatment. So I think that people should engage with his work and read his book, because personally he's actually had a very big impact on the way that I think about that. However, we can put all of that aside, and I will say that you cannot separate the two. It is clearly multifaceted. That being said, what I think and what annoys me is, let's put this on the screen, is the immediate attack by, the Ben Collins of the world, who's like some, quote, disinformation specialist, says this is completely false. He was obsessed with the cabal, had standard anti-war lefty posts in 2007, and then insane screeds about pedophiles. This is the picture of radicalization.
What is wrong about there, though?
Because I don't think that this is the picture of radicalization. I think that crazy people are fueled and are attracted to crazy theories, and that those abound happen to be on the internet. Are they being mainstreamed mainstreamed on the right? Like, no, I don't think QAnon is mainstream on the right. I think that a portion of our public is nuts and that they like to believe that...
The president is like retweeting or retruthing Q drops now.
Yeah.
It's not mainstream on the right. He's the leader of the Republican Party.
I don't think that that's mainstream. I think that Trump being a moron and retweeting like
Trump
15
is
posts...
the Republican Party. So you can't say like he is the Republican Party.
Are we all responsible for things that we retweet?
Reposting Q drops and flirting with society and post like videos and whatever. I mean, you have to say that it is increasingly mainstream within the Republican Party.
I just don't disagree. I mean, look, we have reams of polling data to tell us that at best 15% or whatever of the Republican base even is interested in somewhat in QAnon. So I don't think it's mainstream. I think that the fact that Trump is a moron, retweets a bunch of stuff that people who say nice things about him doesn't mean that it is mainstream. And again, like, I'm just going to come back and say that I don't think James Hodgkinson or Bernie Sanders should be responsible for James Hodgkinson for liking a few Bernie tweets and then shooting a bunch of Republican congressmen.
Liking a few Bernie tweets. And I'm not saying...
Well, it was more than that. I'm actually...
By the way, I do want to be clear, okay? Nothing that I'm saying here is like, that's why we need to crack down on this speech. And there is always a danger in this. All I'm saying is that people who are dabbling in this and fueling it and who freaking know better need to have some thoughts about their own like personal responsibility, like Elon Musk, as people who are powerful and have big platforms. Like, do I think Elon should be censored or banished or fined or put in prison or whatever for posting this like nonsense conspiracy article? No. Do I think that he personally, as someone who, you know, he may not think of himself as a media figure, but he really is one of the most influential media figures on the planet. Like, you wouldn't have posted that nonsense.
No, I wouldn't
have posted that nonsense, and we're much less power. We have much less influence. All I'm saying is that, like, to pretend like the ideology has nothing to do with this and that this is totally separate from anything that's going on the right and, you know, it's just like, this guy's just crazy and that's that. I don't think that that's honest either. And I do think that, you know, people who have big platforms and have a lot of power should take that with a measure of responsibility that we try to do here at Breaking Point.
I think that's absolutely fair, and you're correct, which is that really what it is that for people who know better, and we all know who we're talking about here, who traffic and who flirt with this, it's a good reminder that, you know, people take some of the things, I mean, we take it seriously because we look at it as a job in which we know that people give in trust in us, and so we go out of our way to make sure, like, look, even if I personally may believe something to be true, like, I'm just not going to say it unless there is at least decent evidence, or I'm not going to outright traffic in speculation without at least laying out, like, here are the facts and the thought patterns that led me to get there, and I'm not going to just post some random ass website when I'm the richest person in the world. So I'm not defending the tweet. I'm glad he deleted it. I guess there are two different planes on which we're fighting here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, with regards to that blog and the early questions about some of these weird details, like, we were talking amongst each other about, like,
wow, it's weird.
Maybe that's weird. Maybe what happened? We didn't just like then take that and run with it and just like, you know, we waited to, okay, what are the details? What is it starting to look like? And we'll continue to reassess. We're just trying to lay out for you like the actual facts as we know them based on the reports that we have that are even remotely confirmed. So yeah, to just like run with some rumor mill is irresponsible. Do I think he deserves to be, again, like penalized for it or whatever? No, but, you know, it'd be better if people were a little more responsible with their platforms. That's all I'm saying.
Let's go with that. I like it.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.